Hello everyone, this is a video response to a video that was made by my good friend Allan. He has a channel, it's called Allan C, letter C Records, and I hope you'll check out his video. I'll leave a link below. And he did a video where he talked about the first job that he ever had, and he talked about working at a burger chef, which I had never heard of that place before. And I watched his video, and it reminded me that I actually had a first job working at Burger King. I'd never heard of Burger Chef, but I learned a lot watching Allan's video. And he asked if anybody out there would be interested in making a video talking about their first job. And at first I thought, well, I don't know how interesting that's going to be on my channel, but as the more I thought about it, I began to remember a lot of things connected with Beatles memories, and also connected with a few movie things here and there. So it kind of worked out for me, and I thought, this might be interesting. Now, unlike Allan, who, I don't have any mementos or anything that survives, I don't think, from those days. My first job, we're looking back to like 1980, the summer of 80. I had just gotten out of high school, and just for the temporarily till I got like a real job, I wound up going to a Burger King for like the summer. So I worked there from, I believe, July of 1980 through September of 1980, until I then got a job at a printing shop after that. I was a printer for a while. But first job was at Burger King. And, I tell you, I have some good memories of that summer. They were all golden to me. I remember there was one guy who was complaining, I worked with all night one night. He was complaining at Burger King that he had a problem with his finger, a sore or something. He was wearing a Band-Aid. And back in those days, I don't think you had to wear gloves while you made food, that's one of the few good things about today, is that you have to wear gloves. There's not many good things about today that are better than yesterday, but wearing gloves while handling food is one of the improvements these days. But anyway, this guy, I think his name was Dave. I remember that Dave kept complaining about his finger, and then it wasn't long before a customer complained that they found I think it was a woman, found a Band-Aid in her hamburger. So while he was making the hamburgers, his Band-Aid came off. Oh, gross. What kind of memory is that, right? But don't worry, this will get better as we go along. Not so bad. I would work there at all different times, all different shifts, and sometimes I'd be working there in the afternoon, but a lot of times I remember mostly working nights and getting out of there like sometimes like 1 o'clock in the morning, because we had to like clean up and, fix things, I think clean out the shake machine, things like that. But in 1980, while I was working there, I particularly remember that the album McCartney 2 had come out just around, not too long before that, around May of 1980. And at first, McCartney 2 never really registered with me, but eventually, the more I played it, the more I really came to like it. And today, I love the album McCartney 2 because it basically reminds me of these days. It reminds me of 1980, the summer, and graduating high school and working at this place. So I have good memories of it. And in fact, while I was working at Burger King, McCartney had a #1 single there. We're talking about Coming Up. It's the live version, that came off the McCartney 2 period. Not the studio version, but here, the live version, recorded live in Glasgow, became the #1 hit. And I remember being so happy about it while I was working at Burger King. But anyway, one of the biggest memories and the greatest thing about working at Burger King during that summer was that I actually met my first girlfriend there. She also worked at Burger King, and I could see that she was kind of like showing a lot of attention to me, and she seemed like she liked me, and I could really tell, I think this girl's, into me, to be honest with you. And I knew it for sure when one day I was taking a break and having some dinner, I guess, and I asked her, could you please make me a Whopper, And I always liked my Whoppers with heavy ketchup. Back then, I was able to handle, eating heavy ketchup. But nevertheless, when she made me the hamburger, the Whopper, I remember it came back really like, it was like oozing ketchup. It was like all over the side. It was hanging out. I thought, I like heavy ketchup, but this is ridiculous. Well, it was obvious she liked me, and we started dating and going out, in between working. And somewhat wonderful memories I have going out with this girl. And the first movie we saw together was this one, Fame. This is the first movie we saw. First date movie that I ever saw, on a date, I guess you could say. And again, when I watch this movie, it brings me right back to those times. And the song Fame by Irene Cara, that was kind of our song, I guess. It wasn't a romantic song or anything, but, it reminded me of this girl, and it reminded us of each other. So for a short period of time, Fame was our song, And when we would go out, of course, we would, not to give you too much information, we'd make out in the car and have the radio on, the AM radio. And the biggest song I remember during those times was the Rolling Stones' Emotional Rescue, which I really love that song. I don't have the album. I tried the album, didn't enjoy the whole album, so I don't own it. I do have the Emotional Rescue single, 45, with the picture sleeve. Unfortunately, the way my room is right now, I can't locate it. Couldn't find it. And I do have it on the single, and also I have the album Rewind by the Stones, which is kind of like looking back. So just really great song on a summer night to, park a car somewhere and be together. So that's a memory that I have of this girl. And we went to see so many other movies, too. Among them, we saw the Hollywood Nights during this period, in between working at Burger King. That was a fun movie. New Bomb Turk, Robert Wool. And I remember we saw Kramer versus Kramer, although at that time, I remember we went one night to a discount movie theater. This was an older movie. It was about a year old at the time, I think. And they brought it back. And I remember very vividly taking this girl to see Dressed to Kill, Brian De Palma. This is back in the day when you had movies worth seeing, you know what I mean? Not like today. But here's one that really, anybody who's seen this knows this is really a grotesque movie. But we also saw Mother's Day, which is a slasher horror movie that I won't really go into too much here. But you get the idea. And that's some of the memories that I have of those Burger King years. But to cap it off with, here's one of the biggest. I remember one evening I was working, and I had a late shift to early morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't have my own car at the time, so I would walk home, and it was a decent walk home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was a beautiful summer's night and warm, and I walked home. And back then, we had just gotten cable TV. And anybody who had cable TV around 1979, 1980 may remember, there were a lot of, news shows on, late night news shows. I guess there still are, right? But I just remember sitting down, by then it was 1:30, 2 o'clock, and they said, "It has now been reported that John Lennon and Yoko Ono are in the studio to make their first album in I don't know how many years together, and it's allegedly rumored to be an album about the sexual fantasies experienced by men and women." And I thought to myself, oh, that Lennon, he's back, and leave it to him to do something controversial like that. And of course, the album wasn't about sexual fantasies when Double Fantasy was ultimately released. But, I was a big fanatic of Lennon back then, a teenager who really was crazy about John Lennon. And all I kept wishing for 5 years or so during his retirement was, when is John going to come out and make another record? When is he going to sign a recording contract and come back and entertain us again? And here it was on the walk home from Burger King that I actually got the news that I had sought, and we were so excited. Now, I think the weekend right after that was actually going to be a get-together at a college campus. A long story short, there was a radio show, a college radio station that did a weekly Beatles show every Monday night. They'd play Beatles songs. And it was also a call-in show. You could call in and talk to other listeners. So it wasn't really a lot of people. It was a small station, so maybe there were like 10 to 12 regulars that would call up every time. We got to know each other on the telephone. There was no internet then, or anything. But this college station would have a get together. They started doing it. They started that year in 1980, and then they did it a few years after that. Every summer, you'd go down to the campus of this radio station, and all the listeners would get together, and maybe anywhere, I'd say about 30 people would show up. 30 people, maybe, 20, 30, 35 people, maybe a little less. We'd show up every year. And I remember I took my girlfriend there. We went to this college campus. It was like a Beatle fest on a college campus, so to speak. We just, we played music, we watched movies. And back then you didn't have really, it's funny because I remember you didn't have, VCRs were very rare. When I say play movies, there's only one guy we knew who was an older guy who had a tape deck, a VHS tape deck, a top loader, an old VHS. Home movies, VHS, DVD, those were not a thing yet. They were just coming out. So the fact that this guy actually had one of these expensive VHS machines that could play some Beatles tapes. Remember, we watched A Hard Day's Night and some other stuff, and then we went out. But my biggest memory was, I remember very vividly, we were outside in the air, and I think that we were playing catch and stuff, throwing the ball around. And I remember saying, I heard that John Lennon last night is in the studio. Is that right? And I remember, one of the hosts of the show said, that's right. He's in. I said, it's true. He's in. He goes, he's in there. He's in there right now recording. And it was such a wonderful moment. The atmosphere, the sun, the summer, and the fact that John was back, was really tremendous. It was such a nice thing. And anyway, that's pretty much my memories. I only saw this girl for a few months. We broke up. We were together from July to like November or something like that. It wasn't very long, but it's nice memories that I have. And so there's the Burger King memories along with some Beatles stuff, and good times. Thank you to Allan C Records for inspiring me to make this video. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching and take care.